In red from Algeria, Imane Khelif.
So you may have seen on various social media outlets and in some news articles like the Boston Globe with a headline of transgender boxer advances. Well, I mean, that would be fine if that were actually true. So the issue with this headline is that the Algerian boxer Imane Khelif is not actually transgender. She's a girl. She's identified as female from birth. So, well, I mean, she was female at birth and she still identifies as female, so she is a female. According to her dad, she has been a female her entire life.
رهيب. هذه هجومات لا أخلاقية.
علاش؟
لخاطر ظلموها. هذه تربات هنا بنت صغيرة تبغي السبور ملي كان عندها 6 سنين. بنت أنثى أقرأ ها. هذا ما يكذبش، هذا راها في 99 سجلوا فيه. هذو أعداء الله هذو. هذو اللي راهم يكذبوا ودايرين عليها حملة شرسة. ها هي وينه.
Now, there are big names out there like J.K. Rowling, Elon Musk. You know, they love to whir their ugly little heads in these kinds of times. And whenever there's like a whiff of transgender anything, those two are always there, banging their drum. Could any picture sum up our new men's rights movement any better? The smirk of a male who knows he's protected by a misogynist sporting establishment, enjoying the distress of a woman he's just punched in the head, and those life's ambitions he's just shattered. Paris 2024. But it's important to remember that neither one of those people are medical professionals. Don't have any kind of qualifications to make them any kind of experts on this topic at all. And they're very biased towards the subject. We know about J.K. Rowling, you know, her long-standing anti-transgender stance. She's something. And, you know, Elon Musk, we know he has an axe to grind. So anyway, but in Algeria, being transgender is illegal and can result to up to 3 years in prison or 10,000 dinars. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But it's approximately $75 in US money. So calling someone transgender, regardless of whether or not it's true, is truly reckless on the parts of J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk, because they love to spew their hate and recklessly unethical speech to their millions of followers. And that's not even hyperbole. They have millions of followers, both of them. So to use their platforms for this use is truly disgusting. And they both should be deeply ashamed of themselves. Although I know neither one of them will, because neither one of them have a soul, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Some of the evidence being used against Khelif is a failed test by the now banned for life from the Olympics, Russian-dominated governing body of the IBA, which disqualified Khelif after she won against Azalea Ameneva, a previously unbeaten Russian prospect. Think of that. She's been unbeaten Russian prospect. We know how that might go. Russia's not a beacon of democracy, is it? Disqualifying Khelif would mean that Ameneva's record would once again be perfect. And that's all that matters, right? So now if you're in the boxing world, then you probably already know this. But if you're like me and don't know anything about it, you're going to be like, I don't get it. She failed this test and they let her into the Olympics. What's going on? The Associated Press, though, also known as AP, had an article from today, which is helpful for this video. And they help me understand the entity of the IBA better, put in better context. So I'm going to put a couple graphics up here, but I'm going to read them to you as well. The non-boxing world largely doesn't know, however, about the IBA's decades of troubled governance and long-standing accusations of a thorough lack of normal transparency in nearly every aspect of its dealings, particularly in recent years. The International Olympic Committee, the IOC, has decades of mostly bad history with the beleaguered governing body, previously known for decades as AIBA, and it has exasperatedly begged non-boxing people to pay to the sole source of allegations against Khelif and Lin. Lin is another boxer that I'm not going to cover on this that has also was disqualified by this body. Not until 2019, nearly 2 years after the organization's elected president, within what U.S. officials call deep ties to Russian organized crime and heroin trafficking, did the IOC finally banish the perpetually troubled group. So that sounds legit, right? Organized crime and heroin trafficking. I just want to clear up that this was not preempted by her opponent, Angela. So Angela Carini said in another AP article, all this controversy makes me sad, Carini said. I'm sorry for my opponent too. If the IOC said she can fight, I respect that decision. Carini was apologetic for not shaking Khelif's hand after the bout. It wasn't something I intended to do, Carney said. Actually, I wanted to apologize to her and everyone else. I was angry because my Olympics had gone up in smoke. I don't even have anything against Khelif. Actually, if I were to meet her again, I would embrace her. Which, that's nice. I really appreciate the fact that she's like, no. I don't have anything against my opponent. I did find a doctor online, a Dr. Brian Sutter, who is a sports medicine doctor, and he has a video, which I watched the whole, it was like a 9-minute video. It's really short, but he did do a good job in that 9-minute video explaining disorders of sexual differentiation, or DSD, is not really all that rare. But I'm only going to put in a small section of that here. Basically the end of it where he summarizes his entire video, which I think is just kind of important to really keep in mind. And also, totally watch the video. I'll link it in the comments down below.
I really encourage people to try and be open-minded and learn or read more about this, because again, it is not as simple as saying so-and-so has an X chromosome, so therefore they are male. There is a lot of potential ambiguity that is no fault to the athlete or that individual. This is a really nice little review paper on PubMed that talks about all of these disorders of sexual differentiation, to not just see these headlines, not see the way somebody looks, and automatically assume that just because we are told they have a chromosome, they must be male or they must be female. And again, we're talking about from that sexual side effect, because I think there are a lot of other gender identity things that factor into this as well, with how you're raised and the psychology of it. So it's a very, very complex situation. I don't know the solution, I don't know the answer, but I wish that we all had the intellectual maturity to not just see these headlines, not see the way somebody looks, and automatically assume that just because we are told they have a chromosome, they must be male or they must be female. And again, we're talking about from that sexual side effect, because I think there are a lot of other gender identity things that factor into this as well, with how you're raised and the psychology of it. So it's a very, very complex situation. So the basics: you get one set of chromosomes for each parent. Classic males have an X and a Y, classic females have an X and an X. All of us start down the same pathway with potential to be either female or male from a sexual organ, sexual characteristic standpoint, but the presence of some genes on the Y chromosome send that classically down the pathway male. However, abnormalities in that Y chromosome potentially an extra chromosome. I didn't even mention that, Klinefelter, where you can have more than just those 2 chromosomes. Send us down these pathways where we have abnormal phenotype, meaning abnormal physical characteristics, and abnormal physiology that don't clearly put us in the male or female box.
I would have to make the distinction. People that are athletes, of course they could be something different, right? They're not just, that's all they're going to be. But majority of the people can't be athletes. It's just not genetically, they're not genetically predisposed to that. So I would already say that anyone that is considered an athlete, that has gone to the Olympics, has competed in a either amateur or a professional setting, already has some kind of genetic gift over the general population, right? So I think it's unfair to gauge their, because they're not normal people. These people train 14 hours a day, or probably more. None of us do that. None of us are doing that. Unless we want to become an athlete, then we start doing that. And not everyone that will start doing that will actually become an athlete. Because sometimes it just boils down to your genetics. And your genetics are just not predispositioned to be an athlete. I mean, that goes into this. There's so many factors that factor into whether or not you're going to be an athlete. There's more than just, I want to become an athlete, I became an athlete. That's not the way it works. You have to, I want to be an athlete, I'm going to train to be an athlete, but I may never get to the point where I can be a professional athlete. Because I just may not just be good enough for that. And that doesn't mean I'm bad or something's wrong with you. It just means that's not what you're supposed to be doing. Obviously. That means you are supposed to do something different than that. That's it. I really find it difficult to really be able to say, oh, by just looking at her, because then it also goes into the standards of beauty that we have, right? Oh, is it because she looks too a little masculine? There's a lot of women. There's a lot of cisgender women that look pretty masculine. And I'm not saying that to slight them. It happens. I do not think you should hold that against somebody. We should not be judging people on what they look like. That's weird. We need to stop doing that. We need to stop policing people's genitals, because that's fucking weird. It is so weird that there are people, specifically people on the right, that love to police other people's genitals. And it's that's none of your business. It's not at all your business. It doesn't matter what's between this person's legs. If she grew up as a girl, she identifies as a woman, I don't see the problem here, and we really need to have a better understanding of DSD in mainstream. Because I think that's where we kind of go wrong. As we boil down gender to XX or XY, and that's it. That's not it. There's actually XX, XY, and then there's other ones that I don't know them. But XX and XY aren't the only two. They're just the most prevalent two. But there's lots of genes that go in to these genetic markers. And it's not just something that's simply a binary thing. It's not yes or no. There's a lot of ambiguity in there. And that's what we really need to understand. And I really love how this doctor had articulated, we need the
intellectual maturity.
And that is what we need. We need more intellectual maturity around these issues. And the fact that majority of the people who think that transgender is bad, or just differentiation in, I mean, not to mention, this is a hypothetical we're even discussing. There's only been 2 transgender people ever in the Olympics. Athletes Nikki Hiltz, a runner, and Hergy Basiadan, a boxer, both identify as transgender. Hiltz also identifies as non-binary, but both have always and continue to compete in the women's division, which is the sex they were assigned at birth. And this year, not one of those years. No transgender people are in the Olympics. So that's a big distinction. So we're really just having like this fight over nothing. Khelif is a woman. That's it. End of discussion. You know, it doesn't matter what some jackpot has said. And the thing is, I want us to get to a point where we can have transgender athletes and stand in solidarity with them. I am a cis woman, and I will stand in solidarity with all the transgender people. Let me know what you think about this issue. I do think that you should check out that PubMed article that Dr. Sutter, I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right either, was talking about in his video. But I think we could all use some more information and do continued learning. Learn about things. The internet is there for everyone. If you have an internet connection, you can learn more things. And it is good to have intellectual curiosity because it leads to
intellectual maturity,
which is important. Thanks for watching. Subscribe.